As we grow older, something strange happens. We begin to value peace over noise, clarity over chaos, and sincerity over bloodlines. But here's the truth most people won't say out loud. Sometimes the most dangerous people in your old age are the ones you've known the longest, even family. Now let me start with the first kind of person you absolutely must avoid in your later years, the guilt tripper. And I want you to hear this with your heart wide open, because for many people this one comes wrapped in love. It sounds like care. It even wears the face of family. But guilt, when used as a tool of manipulation, is poison, pure and simple. You see, guilt trippers don't scream at you. They don't need to. They whisper. They sigh. They use silence like a weapon. You tell them no, and suddenly you're painted as ungrateful, selfish, or worse, uncaring. All because you finally decided to draw a line. All because you said, I can't do that anymore. Or I need some time for myself. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your golden years apologizing for simply existing. These are the people who will make you feel like you owe them something for aging, like you've become a burden just by being alive. It's subtle, but deadly. It might come in the form of comments like, well, I guess I'll just figure it out myself since you're too busy. Or, I took care of you once, now look at how you treat me. Let me tell you something, and I want you to hold on to this. Your life is not a debt to be paid to anyone, not even your own children, not even your siblings, not even your oldest friends. You don't owe anyone your peace. You don't owe them your health, and you certainly don't owe them the energy you barely have left just so they can feel powerful or in control or morally superior. That's not love. That's manipulation dressed in emotional currency. The older you get, the more you realize time is your most sacred currency. And guilt trippers are professional time thieves. They will pull you into conversations that leave you drained, into obligations that leave you exhausted, and into relationships that leave you questioning your own worth. You might hear things like, if you really loved me, you'd do this. But listen, love is not proven through exhaustion. Love is not measured by how much of yourself you abandon. You don't prove love by shrinking. You prove love by living in truth. And here's what's even more dangerous. Guilt trippers often train you to question your own reality. You start wondering, am I the one being selfish? Am I really not doing enough? That's how they win. It's how they keep you tied to their emotional leash. But freedom begins when you recognize that emotional manipulation is a form of control, and in old age, you don't have time to be controlled. You need space to heal, to breathe, to reflect, to live. You've spent decades being there for others, raising children, supporting families, showing up at work, giving everything you had. Now the time has come to reclaim what's left of your energy for you. Not to be cold, not to be bitter, but to be free. I know this might sound harsh to some, especially in cultures where family is everything. I'm not saying cut people off just because they're difficult. I'm saying protect yourself from people who use guilt as a leash. That's different. That's not love. That's control wrapped in familiarity. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to disappoint the expectations that were never healthy to begin with. And here's the truth a lot of people are afraid to admit. Just because someone is your family doesn't mean they're healthy for your spirit. Let me say that again. Just because someone is your family doesn't mean they're healthy for your spirit. In this season of life, you're not responsible for fixing everyone. You're not responsible for holding the family together at the cost of your mental and emotional health. You're not here to play referee, therapist, or emotional punching bag. You're here to live, finally, truly, and fully. You don't need to explain your boundaries to people who are never going to respect them anyway. You don't need to justify your peace. You just need to claim it. You've earned it. Through the storms, through the heartbreaks, through the years you stayed silent when you should have spoken, through the nights you gave when you had nothing left, you have earned this peace with your life. Don't trade it for guilt. If someone truly loves you, they will want your peace more than they want your compliance. Real love doesn't demand, it respects, it honors, it creates space. It doesn't guilt you into silence or submission. So as you move forward in life, be mindful of the guilt trippers. They might come with warm smiles and soft words, but if your soul feels heavier after they leave, pay attention to that. Your spirit knows what it's being pulled into. And if you ever need a reminder that it's okay to say no, here it is. Saying no to them is saying yes to you. That's a trade worth making every single time. Now let's talk about another type of person you need to start backing away from. The constant complainers, the never satisfied critics, the ones I like to call energy vampires. You know who I'm talking about. These are the people who could win the lottery and still find something to complain about. The sun could be shining and they'll still tell you it's too bright. You could be having a peaceful day and they'll show up with a cloud over their head and try to drag you under it with them. In your later years, energy becomes sacred, and you don't have the same reserves you once had. You've got to be selective about where you spend it and who you spend it on. But energy vampires, they don't care about that. They will talk your ear off for hours about everything that's wrong in their life, never once asking how you're doing, never once checking in on your heart. And what's worse, they don't even want solutions. They just want company in their misery. They drain your spirit, not with loud arguments, but with the quiet, steady drip of negativity. It's constant, it's subtle, and it's exhausting. One phone call, one visit, one conversation, and suddenly your entire day feels heavier. You feel irritated, anxious, unsettled, and you don't even know why. That's how it works. They offload their emotional weight onto you and then walk away feeling better while you're left carrying bags you didn't pack. And I want to say this plainly. You were not put on this earth to be someone's emotional landfill. You were not created to absorb everyone's darkness at the expense of your own light. That is not your job, especially not now. I know some of these people might be close to you, maybe even people you've known for decades. Maybe it's a sibling, a lifelong friend, a neighbor, or even one of your own children. And that makes it harder. But listen closely. Just because someone is in your life story doesn't mean they get to write your ending. If they can't bring peace into your space, if all they do is drain, complain, and criticize, then it is absolutely okay, necessary even, to create space, not out of anger, but out of self-respect, out of a deep understanding that your emotional well-being matters, and you no longer have the time or desire to pour yourself out for people who only take. You ever notice how being around certain people makes you feel smaller? How after talking to them, your mood shifts, your hope shrinks, and suddenly you start doubting things you felt clear about just moments ago? That's the quiet erosion of your peace happening in real time. That's the cost of constant negativity, and trust me, it adds up over time. There are people who have gotten so used to complaining, they don't even realize they're doing it anymore. Their whole identity is built around what's wrong, what's missing, who's to blame. And if you spend enough time with them, they'll start convincing you to see life that way too. That's the real danger. They don't just drain you, they reshape you. They mold your perspective with their bitterness. And if you're not careful, you'll start picking up that weight without even knowing it. You deserve to be around people who lift you, who challenge you in love, who speak life, not just loss, who remind you that even though the world is messy, there's still so much beauty in it. And if you don't have that in your circle, then maybe it's time to tighten the circle. Let me tell you something most people won't. Peace is louder than noise. Peace doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need to prove itself. But when it's gone, you feel it in your body, in your spirit, in your mind. Protecting your peace means protecting your energy. And protecting your energy means stepping back from people who treat your presence like a dumping ground for their dysfunction. You are not obligated to answer every call. You are not obligated to listen to every complaint. You are not required to carry what they refuse to release. It is not unkind to protect your space. It is not rude to say, "I love you, but I can't carry this with you today." That is wisdom, that is maturity, that is self-preservation. There comes a point in life where you have to stop apologizing for choosing peace. You have to stop explaining why you'd rather sit in silence than in someone's chaos. You have to stop feeling guilty for not engaging in endless cycles of criticism and complaints. Because the truth is, you've outgrown that noise. And that's something to be proud of. You entering a time in life where your focus should be on healing, reflecting, and enjoying the moments you have left. Not spending them entangled in someone else's drama or misery. You've carried enough. You've sacrificed enough. And now your energy must be guarded like treasure. So when the constant complainers come knocking, when the critics try to pull you back into their swirl of negativity, remember this. Now let me take you into something a little more personal, because this one stings a little deeper. It's about the people who only show up when they need something. The users. The ones who treat your relationship like a convenience store. They drop in when they're low, grab what they need, and disappear the second they've filled up. And I want to be clear. This isn't about being unwilling to help people. This is about recognizing when help has become a one-way street, when love has become a transaction, when your presence only matters when you're useful. You've seen it before. Maybe it's someone who calls only when their car breaks down or when rent's due. Maybe it's someone who pops back into your life just long enough to borrow money, borrow time, or borrow peace, and then fades out again without even a thank you, let alone a how are you. And you try to give them the benefit of the doubt because that's who you are. You've got a heart that wants to see the best in people. You remember who they used to be. You hope one day they'll finally show up just to be with you. Not because they need something from you. But here's what life will teach you if you're paying attention. Some people never show up unless there's something in it for them. And that kind of relationship, no matter how long it's lasted or how deep the history runs, is not love, it's dependence, it's convenience, and it will leave you emotionally bankrupt if you don't learn how to say no. One of the toughest lessons in old age is realizing that being needed is not the same as being loved. Let me say that again. Being needed is not the same as being loved. Some folks only keep you around because you're easy, because you don't say no, because they know your heart is big and your defenses are soft, and every time they come around, they pull a little more from you. Not just money or time, no. They take something more valuable. They take your presence, your peace, your patience, and leave you emptier than when they arrive. And don't they always have a good story too? A reason, an excuse, a promise that this time is different. And for a moment you want to believe it. You want to believe that they've changed. That maybe, just maybe, they're here because they care, not because they're desperate. But then it happens again. You give, they take. And as soon as their problem is solved, they're gone. What's dangerous is how easily this kind of relationship can wear you down over time. It doesn't happen all at once. It's a slow erosion, a steady draining. You start feeling guilty for not being available. You start questioning yourself when you set boundaries. You wonder if maybe you're the one being too harsh, but deep down you know the truth. You're being used, and it hurts. There's a kind of silence that settles in after someone's gotten what they wanted from you. A silence that reminds you they weren't there for you. They were there for what you could give, and if you listen closely, that silence will teach you something. You deserve more than being someone's backup plan. You deserve more than being someone's emotional ATM. You deserve people who pour back into you, not just when it's convenient for them, but consistently, with presence, with love, with truth. And I know it's hard to let go of people you've poured into for years. It's hard to say no to someone you once held in your arms or shared meals with or prayed for late into the night. But you've got to ask yourself, what is this relationship costing me? Not just financially, emotionally, spiritually. Am I being left drained? Am I being respected? Am I being seen or just used? And don't be surprised when these same people call you selfish the moment you stop serving their needs. That's their tactic. That's how they keep the cycle going, because as long as they can guilt you, they can use you. But the moment you choose peace over performance, the moment you stop being available on demand, that's when they show you who they really are. And when that moment comes, let it happen, let them walk, let them be angry, let them twist the story if they need to, but you stay rooted, because deep down, you know the truth. You were not made to be used. You were made to be loved. In this season of life, you don't need people who keep score. You don't need people who only remember you when they're in a crisis. You need people who remember you in joy, in stillness, in ordinary days. People who are around not for what you offer, but for who you are. You've given enough in your lifetime. Now it's time to receive not just respect, but real mutual care. And that starts by refusing to be anyone's emotional vending machine. So when they come knocking, only when they're in need, when they show up with a hand out, but never a hand to hold, remember this. If their love disappears when your resources run out, it was never love to begin with. Now let's talk about a group of people that can be the hardest to recognize at first, but once you do, everything starts to make sense. The controllers. These are the ones who, no matter how old you get, still treat you like you don't know what's best for yourself. They don't yell. They don't always demand. Sometimes they even sound like they're helping. But underneath all that concern, what they really want is control. And I want you to hear this loud and clear. You do not need to be managed, you need to be respected. It's one of the most subtle forms of emotional suffocation when someone constantly questions your decisions, undermines your judgment, or tries to run your life under the disguise of, "I'm just trying to help." But what they're really doing is robbing you of your dignity, your voice, your freedom. And in this stage of life, you've earned all three. Controllers come in different forms. Some are obvious. They're loud, forceful, always trying to dictate how you should think, feel, or act. But others are quieter. They try to make every choice for you, not because they believe in your weakness, but because they fear your independence. Because your independence threatens their sense of control. And so they'll give you advice you never asked for, opinions you didn't need, and pressure you in ways that make you second-guess what you already knew in your gut. You know the kind. You say you want to travel somewhere, and they say, "That's not safe at your age." You say you're thinking of downsizing your home, and they say, "You're not thinking clearly." You want to give something away, and suddenly they're in your ear saying, "Don't do that. What if you need it?" It's constant low-level doubt disguised as care, but it's not care, it's control. And that control can leave you feeling like a child in your own life. Let me tell you something. Age doesn't erase your ability to make choices. If anything, it refines it. You've lived through wars, recessions, losses, births, heartbreak, healing, and all the ordinary miracles in between. You've earned the right to say, "I know what I want, and I trust myself to choose it." Anyone who tries to silence that is not helping you. They're handling you. And you are not someone who needs to be handled. What makes this even more painful is that sometimes the controllers are the people who love you the most. A child who thinks they're protecting you. A spouse who's grown fearful of change. A friend who thinks they know you better than you know yourself. And because their voice is familiar, you start to listen. You start to doubt. And little by little, your life becomes smaller. Not because you wanted less, but because someone else decided you couldn't handle more. But here's what I believe with every fiber of my being. It is not your job to live a life that makes other people comfortable. It is your job to live a life that feels right in your own spirit. And if that means disappointing the ones who think they know better, then so be it. Your truth is not up for debate. Your freedom is not something you have to earn again and again. You already paid for it with years of sacrifice, experience, and wisdom. And don't let anyone confuse your need for support with a need for supervision. Yes, we all need help sometimes. That's human. But needing help doesn't mean you hand over the keys to your entire life. It means you invite someone in as a partner, not a warden. Controllers will often act offended when you push back. They'll say things like, "I'm just trying to look out for you." But there's a difference between looking out for someone and looking to control them. One is love, the other is fear. And you've lived too much life to let someone else's fear dictate your steps. You deserve to be surrounded by people who trust your voice, who celebrate your choices, who believe in your capacity to lead your own life. Because let's be honest, if they haven't trusted you by now, what more do you need to prove? You don't need anyone to co-sign your life anymore. You just need people who will walk alongside you, not over you. And I know for some of you, this means having hard conversations. It means saying, "I love you, but I'm going to make this decision on my own." It means letting go of the need to be understood and choosing instead to be respected. That takes courage, but it's the kind of courage that sets you free. So if someone in your life is trying to put you in a box, if they're trying to parent you when you need a partner, if they're making you feel like your choices are foolish or your dreams are out of reach, stand tall. because this life is still yours to live. There's one more kind of person you must be mindful of in this season of life. The ones who refuse to grow. The ones who are stuck in the past, who live in cycles of bitterness, blame, and immaturity, no matter how old they get. You know the type. They wear their age on their face, but not in their spirit. They've learned how to survive, but not how to evolve. And when you're around them, it's like being pulled backward. Their world is small, their thinking is fixed, and their hearts are closed. And if you're not careful, they'll trap you in that same place. These are the folks who gossip about everything but never reflect on anything. The ones who love to talk about what everybody else is doing wrong but never stop to ask what they themselves need to change. The ones who act like they've got all the answers, but deep down they're just scared of transformation. And let me tell you something, growth doesn't stop just because your hair turns gray. In fact, spiritual growth becomes even more important the older you get. Because in this chapter of life, you're not just looking back, you're preparing for something deeper, for peace, for clarity, for legacy. But you can't walk into that kind of freedom if you're still surrounded by people who refuse to evolve. People who still fight over petty things. People who are still angry over events from 20 years ago. People who are still holding on to offenses like they're medals of honor, when really, they're just anchors. If you let them, they'll keep pulling you into conversations that no longer serve your spirit, arguments that have no purpose, mindsets that lead nowhere. And the truth is, it's not your job to carry them forward if they've chosen to stand still. I know that might sound harsh, but listen. Your soul wasn't meant to be trapped in someone else's emotional immaturity. Just because you share history with someone doesn't mean you owe them your future. There are people who will look at you and say, "You've changed." And you know what? That's the best compliment you could receive. Because if you're not changing, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, you're slowly dying, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. But people who are stuck don't want to see you evolve. Your growth threatens their comfort. Your peace exposes their unrest. Your healing reminds them of the work they've avoided for years. Sometimes the hardest people to walk away from are the ones you've known the longest, not because they're healthy for you, but because they've become familiar. They've become routine. But familiarity is not a reason to stay stuck. You can love someone from a distance. You can honor the history without carrying the weight of it. I've seen it time and time again. Elders who were wise in age but stagnant in spirit, full of stories but empty of insight. They can tell you what happened but not what it meant. They can list their regrets but not what they learned. That's not wisdom, that's just memory. And memory without meaning keeps you in a loop. And I know you didn't come this far just to spin in circles. You came this far to find peace, to find rest, to pass on more than just tales. You came to pass on truth. But you cannot do that while dragging the weight of people who refuse to reflect, refuse to heal, refuse to let go. Their chaos becomes your burden. Their pain becomes your prison. And slowly you'll find yourself watering dead plants, waiting for change that was never going to come. Let me say something difficult but necessary. Some people are not interested in becoming better. They are only interested in being right. And you will waste the best of your final years trying to convince them of something their heart is not ready to receive. That's not your assignment. Your job is not to carry grown adults through emotional growth they're not willing to do. Your job is to walk in peace, to keep growing, and to surround yourself with people who are doing the same. Find people who are curious, not just opinionated, people who are open, not just loud, people who are seeking healing, not rehearsing pain. And when you do, you'll notice something shift. You'll start to feel light again, clear, alive, because growth creates space. But being around people who refuse to grow, that suffocates your spirit. You deserve relationships that feel like fresh air, not heavy fog. People who challenge you in love, not chain you in fear. And if that means shrinking your circle, so be it. Because a small circle full of truth and growth is better than a big one full of noise and numbness. So when you find yourself around people who haven't moved an inch in spirit or in heart, people still clinging to bitterness, still blaming the world, still recycling the same conversations from decades ago, remember this: there's one more kind of person you must learn to distance yourself from, especially in this sacred season of your life, and that's the ones who mock faith. The ones who belittle the very thing that's carried you through the storms. The ones who roll their eyes when you speak about God. Who dismiss your convictions like they're nothing more than fairy tales. And I'm not just talking about people who believe differently. No, I'm talking about people who actively disrespect your belief. People who take joy in tearing down what you've built your soul on. Faith is not weakness, it's strength. It's the reason you're still standing. It's the reason you made it through pain that should have broken you. Faith is what held you when people didn't. Faith is what whispered, "Keep going," when everything around you was falling apart. And anyone who laughs at that, anyone who treats that as foolishness, is not someone you need in your space, especially now. You see, when we reach this stage of life, the questions get deeper, the reflections get heavier. You start thinking about eternity, about purpose, about what really matters beyond the surface. You're not just counting years anymore, you're measuring meaning. And in that space, you need people who speak life, not mockery. People who may not walk your exact path, but who at the very least respect it. But some people are so rooted in cynicism that they cannot help but scoff at things they don't understand. They'll make you feel silly for praying. They'll make you feel small for believing in something greater. They'll mock the very thing that's been your anchor. And if you let them close, their doubt will start to seep into your spirit, not because they're right, but because their voice is loud and constant. Don't you let it happen. Don't you let their sarcasm shrink your faith. Don't you let their jokes plant seeds of shame in your soul, because here's the truth. Faith is not fragile. It's fire. It's what's kept you alive. It's what's held your family together. It's what's healed your heart time and time again. Faith doesn't make you naive. It makes you grounded. It makes you wise. And anyone who can't see that isn't looking with the right eyes. Some of these people might even be close to you, a friend you've known for decades, a family member who grew cold over the years, maybe even one of your own children who now thinks they're too smart to believe in what they call old stories. And you love them. You always will. But just because you love someone doesn't mean you have to let them disrespect what matters most to you. This isn't about arguing. This isn't about trying to convert anyone. This is about protecting the soil of your soul. Because whatever peace you have in your spirit right now, you fought for that. You bled for that. You cried for that. And you don't owe anyone an explanation for why you believe or who you pray to or what gives you hope in the dark. You know what's real. You know what you've been through. You felt the hand of God carry you when nothing else could. You've heard His voice in the quiet, seen His grace in the moments when you least deserved it. And I don't care how educated, accomplished, or enlightened someone claims to be, if they haven't walked through your valley, they don't get to laugh at your light. Sometimes you have to love people from a distance for the sake of your soul. You can still pray for them. You can still wish them well. But you do not have to let them poison your peace or shake your foundation with their doubt. That is not love. That is spiritual warfare disguised as casual conversation. And let me tell you something else. It's not just about what they say out loud. It's the energy they bring. The smirks, the rolling eyes, the passive-aggressive comments that chip away at your peace. Little by little, you deserve better than that. You deserve people who honor your walk, even if they don't share it. People who sit with you in your truth, not poke holes in it for sport. Because at the end of the day, we are all going to leave this place, every single one of us. And when that time comes, what will matter isn't how many opinions we debated, but how much peace we carried. How well we loved, how deeply we believed. And I want you to have peace when you lay your head down at night. Not because life is perfect, but because your soul is anchored. Because you didn't let mockery steal your reverence. Because you held on to your faith, even when others laughed at it. So when the ones who mock what you believe come around, whether they do it with sarcasm or silence, remember this. You don't need agreement from others to stay close to God. You just need the courage to guard your faith like the treasure it is.